Hello there! I'm your Executive Vice President of Being a Wee Cocky Bastard at Blomco Incorporated, and welcome to Adam Blampied Fantasy Books, where I take a wrestling storyline and challenge those in power to do it better. Because I'm a smartass. In this video, I will be booking Kenny Omega, leaving AEW and coming to WWE, a video commissioned over on my Patreon by Kane, aka Eric Storm, who's kindly given me permission to share it. If you'd like to commission a booking of your own, you can do so at patreon.com/Adam Blampied. So, the last booking video I did before leaving Parts of Unknown was a wrestler switching companies, and now my first booking over here at my very own channel is a wrestler switching companies, sunrise, sunset, yes, we have no bananas. So I've decided to start this booking video off with story time. Are you sitting comfortably? Then I'll begin. Once upon a time, in a land not so different from our own, there was a wrestling company that was really quite shit. A miasma of backstage tantrums, storylines being dropped without warning, random title switches, too many belts, extremely talented wrestlers not receiving consistent TV time, those same wrestlers leaving to find better opportunities elsewhere, and an erratic billionaire who got bored very quickly, and I'm not allowed to speculate why by legal, so I'm just going to say the word cocaine, and I'm saying that for no reason whatsoever. Wait, hang on. No, that's not right. Once upon a time, in a land not so different from our own, there was a wrestling company that was very good indeed. A backstage rallied around a single man's creative vision, storylines centered around nuanced, vulnerable characters and their multi-year-long narratives, shit-hot pay-per-views, all creating a haven for stars who never quite felt like they belonged over there, to come over and be immediately pushed to the top of the card, seeing their characters flourish in what fans have come to see as the true mecca of professional wrestling. Wait, hang on, that's not right either. Oh, I see what I've done. There we go. People have asked me my thoughts on AEW and why I think there's nothing more tiring in this world than fans of one company who relish the failures of another. I can't deny that AEW doesn't really do much for me these days. Goodbye, comment section! It's been fun knowing you for a month. I'm just not really sure which feud I'm actually supposed to care about, lads. After the Elite versus AEW, not really going anywhere. The Death Riders versus AEW stuff doesn't seem like it's going anywhere, especially as everyone in that supposedly super evil murder cult dresses like they've walked out of H&M after spending precisely 40 quid. I don't want to watch wrestlers whose fashion sense is me. Thank you very much. I hate me. Also, MJF appears to be trying to kill multiple old men and cowboys. Point is, we're a long way away from the industry-defining storylines of said Cowboy Hangman Adam Page's 2-year odyssey to the top, or MJF versus CM Punk. There's too much talent over there to not occasionally create magic. I really enjoyed the Bryan Danielson world title run until it abruptly ended. Page versus Strickland was good, but I don't know. It all seems a little unfocused and arbitrary over there. I'll watch the big shows. Buddy Matthews versus Kazuchika Okada, I'd buy that for an Australian dollar, which is actually worth significantly less than a regular dollar. But I still haven't seen anything to convince me that the AEW TV shows are worth my time. To be clear, I'd love that to change. I unironically really enjoy WWE at the moment. It's been a while, and I think wrestling only gets better when multiple companies are providing the goods, but it's pretty incredible how AEW seem to have assumed a lot of WWE's bad habits over the past 2 years. A switcheroo that seemed to coincide almost perfectly with Cody Rhodes, one of the founding members of AEW, jumping ship back to WWE and proving that Daddy Paul really didn't hold a grudge when it came to people destroying his favourite chairs. Turns out he's a rich man. He's got other chairs. Before it happened, Cody leaving the company he fucking made seemed about as unthinkable as, Well, Kenny Omega leaving the company fucking made. But we live in a world where Cody Rhodes and CM Punk, once the patron saints of AEW being the great alternative, are now flourishing in the great mainstream of WWE. Kenny Omega is 41 years old. And if I'm honest, I don't think there's a Scooby's chance in Doobie that he'll end his career in WWE. He signed on for several more years in AEW, and if anything, he's probably more likely to wind down in New Japan. But we live in wrestling's craziest timeline, so never say never. And if I could magic the best bout machine over to the Levecca of pro wrestling, here's how I would do it. And I'm challenging WWE to do it better, because I'm a smartass. Explode! So Kenny Omega is currently doing the Simba, everything the light touches is yours shtick with Will Ospreay, and while I think that's a wonderful pairing, I am a little worried about the herd of wildebeests grazing over the hill. So AEW has always worked best when they've been the A24 of wrestling promotions, and for anyone who thought I couldn't get more pretentious with these, I found a way. By that comparison, I mean less flashy, more realistic, vulnerable, more psychologically charged, adapting the real-life journeys of its stars into stories that almost tell themselves. When AEW was new and exciting and a panacea to WWE shattered creative, that was even easier. They actually felt like the Resistance in a way that can't be artificially generated more than 5 years later. AEW is now tasked with creating new mythos, rather than parlaying the newness of the company, the existing hierarchies of Bullet Club or the Elite or the comparative crapness of WWE. And it's struggling because it's always been a company that's reached its best heights because of stuff you already knew. AEW have created some entirely new stories that don't depend on their fans doing the reading. Timeless Tony Storm and the Cole MJF stories were great until they weren't, but when it comes to wrestlers who have real life still soaked into their appeal, Kenny Omega feels like one of the last ones left. He helped found the company, was arguably the best champion they ever had, disappeared after the greatest story they ever had wrapped up, and has been largely absent during the company's downturn, showing up occasionally to have the year's best matches. With the right framing, Kenny Omega is AEW, in a way that the heel Young Bucks weren't quite able to pull off. He's more soulful, less of a meme. There's something about Kenny Omega that still resonates with what AEW was designed to be. That is why, if the Death Riders thing is ever going to be the company rebooting storyline they seemed to want it to be, killing AEW so they could build something stronger from its ashes, they're going to have to be bastards and kill Kenny. So here we go. Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay finish the feud with the Don Callis family. I do get why they want to wrap that up. Callis was a huge part of Kenny's heel presentation, but yeah, Omega and Ospreay win. They do a joint hidden blade V-trigger on Don, and he explodes into a million pieces as JR dances merrily around his remains, covering them in barbecue sauce. So Don Callis is gone, but Carl Fletcher runs into Jon Moxley backstage. "You need direction," he says. "Here's a 3-pack of men's regular fit white tees, only $17.99 from H&M. That's a bargain in anyone's budget." So Ospreay and Omega are still joined together like Steptoe and Son when we build towards Revolution and a mini tournament, yeah that's right, fuck you, to determine the next challenger to Okada's Continental Championship. The finals of that tournament end up being Ospreay and Omega, but after a time limit draw, it's determined that at Revolution, it'll be a 3-way, Okada versus Omega versus Ospreay, in a match designed specifically to see if it can kill Dave Meltzer, then take him and cut him out in little stars, and he shall make the face of heaven so fine that all the world will be in love with AEW and pay no worship to the garish WWE. At the end of the match, won by Ospreay, Omega and Okada embrace as two men whose feud helped launch the company they're standing in, and the Young Bucks return to create the Chaos Elite. Omega, the Bucks, Okada, and Ospreay, a united front against the Death Riders. This leads to a blood and guts match slightly earlier than it normally is in late April. I don't care, they did one in May. Fuck off. The Chaos Elite versus the Death Riders, which now includes Carl Fletcher, because by now he's bald enough to take part. That's the pot calling the kettle a little bald wanker. The match is eventually won by the Death Riders when Nick gives up to save Matt from being literally suffocated to death by a Waitrose bag. I'm not sure how I feel about the murder thing, but if you're gonna do it, they're good, strong bags. After the match, Omega makes one last desperate play to rid AEW of the Death Riders. In the spirit of the pay-per-view, he challenges Mox to go double or nothing, the biggest stake in the history of AEW. The winner becomes AEW champion, and if Kenny wins, the Death Riders disband. But if Mox wins, Kenny leaves AEW forever. At Double or Nothing 2019, Mox debuted in AEW attacking Omega. Now is the final stand for one of those two men. Despite interference aplenty, Mox puts Omega down with a top rope Death Rider, and he retains his title. The Elite is dead, and once and for all, Jon Moxley has ripped out the heart of AEW. And then Jon Moxley celebrates the next night by eating a beef heart on camera, and somehow managing to look everyone in the arena directly in the eyes as he does so. After that, I think you run Ospreay versus Mox, and then maybe at All In, you have Bryan Danielson come back versus Mox, or if he's finished climbing his fucking big hill, Darby Allin, maybe at All In, Allin, All In, finally beats Mox in front of Texas after filming himself challenging Jon Moxley to a match from literally the top of Mount Everest. Please don't die up there, Darby, or you'll make this video incredibly difficult to rewatch. Kenny Omega is gone from AEW, and he announces that he might just be done with pro wrestling entirely. His body's beat up, doesn't think he has another run in him. He's going to walk off into the sunset, or whatever the cold equivalent is that they have in Canada. He's going to get better and train the next generation. So, just over 90 days later, it's the main event of SummerSlam Night 2, CM Punk versus Roman Reigns, a feud in which Paul Heyman hosts two birthday parties in opposing apartments and has to rush back and forwards between the two to make sure those two lads never meet. After the match, which Punk wins? He gets on the mic and talks about how 2 years ago, at the 2023 Summer of Punk, that summer ended with him walking out holding a title belt. And just like he left that company having never lost that title, when the time comes for him to leave WWE, he will also leave holding a belt. And why? Because I am the best professional wrestler on the planet. Suddenly, flames, operatic music, and the raspy drawl of "Oh my God." I love Kenny Omega's new theme so much, by the way, and the fact he's got an actual fucking Final Fantasy composer to make it is the most heartwarmingly dorky thing I have ever heard. So we get the Omega and Punk feud, with Omega telling him how furious he was to watch CM Punk fuck up a great thing that he and his friends had going, how Punk ran away before Omega could come back and properly get his hands on him. Also, I know that WWE doesn't like running feuds based on AEW. We've seen that with how relatively restrained they were when Cody came in. But based on how they seem to have brought back Saturday night's main event to fuck with Tony Khan specifically, I'm sure they'd enjoy blowing off the biggest real-life feud in AEW history in a WWE ring. They're just sassy little madams like that. Look at you, Paul. You're a sassy little madam. Omega could have just gone home and lived the rest of his life, but he knew that he couldn't let it lie. If Punk wanted to come to AEW, ruin it, and then split, Kenny Omega is going to come and do the same to WWE. Everyone's going to be happy to see the man, but keep him an anti-hero, because dickhead Kenny Omega is the best Kenny Omega. Have him be worked up, obsessed with finishing things with Punk, and let that obsession take him to a dark and bitter place. Because as we've seen with Seth Rollins and Drew McIntyre, CM Punk will absolutely bring out the vengeful wang that lurks at the heart of each and every one of us. So there's a huge match booked for Clash in Paris. Kenny Omega versus Seth Rollins, a #1 contenders match to see who gets to challenge CM Punk for his WWE Championship. Remember that brief time when Seth couldn't use the stomp anymore, so they randomly gave him a version of the V-trigger as a finisher for like 2 weeks and made it unnecessarily complicated and shit? The Ripcord Knee, it was called. It was weak as piss, and occasionally Michael Cole would just shout, "The knee!" And thankfully it was just a phase Seth was going through. Omega beats Seth Rollins Because honestly, with Kenny Omega, you can just do a bunch of historically weighted dream matches and then let Omega go home before his bones turn into poutine. At the press conference after Clash in Paris, have Punk sat with the belt, eating muffins, and then Kenny Omega runs in to knee the living shit out of him, biting his arm and then kicking his dog off a bridge. At Payback in September, Omega finally fights Punk for the title, but loses after interference from AJ Styles. I don't give a shit. We're revisiting a 9-year-old Bullet Club feud, baby. That's what you fucking pay me for. Back in 2016, Kenny Omega took control of the Bullet Club from AJ Styles, humiliating him and running him out of the company all the way back to WWE. Styles and Omega have only had I think they've only had one wrestling match, which is very silly indeed. So Styles and Omega are in the ring talking about Bullet Club, talking about Japan, talking about how much they hate each other, when out comes Finn Balor. Now, doesn't all this seem a little familiar? I'm going to finish it. You's forgetting about all Finn Balor now, are you? Please don't tell OSW about that. 3-way match booked for Bad Blood, the 3 great leaders of Bullet Club, and also what a fucking banger it could be if they let it. So that match ends with Kenny Omega winning because of a new faction being born. Kenny Omega, Andrade, a returning Rusev, and a returning Aleister Black, dressed all in suits, calling themselves The Professionals. A collection of huge egos who have all got something to prove in WWE, which is how much of a professional they are. This moves into War Games at Survivor Series. WWE originals like Rollins, Reigns, Orton, Cena versus the Professionals, both teams looking for a 5th man for War Games. Despite hating most of the guys on the WWE team, WWE Champion CM Punk hates Kenny Omega more and sides with Team WWE, leaving the Professionals' 5th guy to be Cody Rhodes. So Rhodes is going to resist going heel, but he understands more than anyone what it's like to be these guys. To fail, to leave, to come back, and what it means to try and prove yourself in a place that originally told you that you weren't good enough. The match ends with Cody trying to stop the Professionals from completely brutalizing CM Punk, and that leads them to turn on Cody Rhodes, allowing Cena to hoist Cody up for the AA and get the win for his team. At Ruthless Aggression, the final pay-per-view of the year, John Cena beats CM Punk to win his 17th title and immediately retires, vacating the belt on the very first Raw of 2026. And honestly, I kind of hate that in some way I'm generating more interest for the Royal Rumble taking place in Saudi Arabia, but I'd have that Rumble, like it was 10 years previously, be for the WWE title. Because if WWE's roster is anywhere like as stacked in a year's time as it was before the 2025 Royal Rumble, then there could be legitimately 10 guys who could win and become new champion in that Rumble. Seth, Gunther, Cody, Roman, Punk, Styles, Uso, Drew McIntyre, Logan Paul, and Kenny Omega. It just sounds like a good time. Final 4 of that Royal Rumble: Cody Rhodes, Kenny Omega, Roman Reigns, CM Punk. The final 2, Cody Rhodes and Kenny Omega. Kenny wins, much like Ric Flair, once the greatest wrestler of all time and the pinnacle of a style that WWE would make nods towards but never fully embrace, just like he came in from the other place and won the title in a Royal Rumble. 35 years later, Kenny Omega has a tear in his eye and uses the numbers game to overwhelm Cody and win the Rumble to become the WWE champion, shocking the world. With a tear in my eye, you will all pay homage to the man. How do you do it, Rick? All of this sets up the main event feud going into WrestleMania 42 at the Superdome in New Orleans, which is a guess at the time of recording it, but it seems like it's going to be the place. It's going to be Kenny Omega versus Cody Rhodes, a rivalry that dates back to the Bullet Club's Civil War, to the creation of AEW, to Cody Rhodes leaving that company, and unlike when he was the trailblazer over there, sending shots at WWE, busting that throne with the sledgehammer instead, he became the person who laid the path for everyone else, Andrade, Punk, Starks, Black, Cargill, who left that company for WWE. But as Kenny tells Cody, you had to fail at WWE before you could succeed elsewhere. But the best bout machine has never failed wherever he's gone. Wherever he went, he cleaned up the competition. So you have Kenny Omega versus Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania 42, and Kenny Omega successfully retains the title with the help of the professionals, setting himself up for a good few title defenses against top opponents. Drew McIntyre, Shinsuke Nakamura. Hell, I'd love to see him kick the piss out of Logan Paul. And it's all leading to the big main event of SummerSlam and the dream match that has been top of a lot of people's lists for a long time. 1 year after he debuts, that is Kenny Omega versus Roman Reigns. That is where I'm ending my booking. Kenny Omega versus Roman, building Kenny up as this villainous, like playing off the vibe of AEW as a place where there are a lot of unprofessional people, coming in, forming a stable with a bunch of disgruntled guys, winning the main WWE Championship in the Royal Rumble, sort of echoing Ric Flair invasion, echoing AEW versus WWE, but it's always going to be framed with WWE coming out on top, because all of these feuds, him versus Punk, him versus Rhodes, all of this stuff was, all the groundwork was done by big fluffy haired Tony, but it's being paid off by Daddy Paul, and that's why I think it's conceivable, like that much, like that much that they could do something like this. And that is how I would book Kenny Omega's jump to WWE. What did you think? Let me know in the comments, and if you would like to commission a fantasy bookie, just like Kane, aka Eric Storm did, you big legend, head on over to my Patreon, patreon.com/Adam Blampied. I am your vice president of being a big old smug wang at Blomco Incorporated. Get back to work.